Hey leaders, Alexandr Thoric here, and today we'll talk about leadership. And today I just was honored to have a great guest. Charly Street is a retired vice president of operations with Cinemark. He has worked in the theater industry for 43 years, 38 of that coming with Cinemark, and working his way up from cleanup boy to vice president of operations. At the time of his retirement, Charly Street was one of only 3 people who had received the Founders Award and been inducted into the Cinemark Hall of Fame. So nice to have you here, Mark.
Thank you so much. It's a privilege. Thank you so much.
So I'd like to ask you a couple of questions because our listeners, they will be very interested in how lead people effectively, because today, you know that as we just discussed before that, based on Gallup study, 78% of Americans, they say that their organizations have low morale. And this is not a good news.
Right.
So I think this is because of leadership in those organizations, and managers, they just manage processes, but they don't lead people.
Correct. Correct.
And what I would like to ask you, first question is, I know that, and all of us, we know that people want to change. And some of them, they do understand leadership. Some of them, they do not understand leadership. But people who do understand leadership and practice leadership, but they are not willing to change. And my question is, why do leaders fail at change?
Let's see. Sometimes it's because the leaders haven't bought into the change. Okay. Sometimes they haven't got their team to buy into the change because they don't understand the hows, the whys, the whats. How's it going to be implemented? Why is the change needed? And people need to understand that. They need to know why the change is needed. And what is it going to accomplish? What is it going to do? Is it going to help them meet expectations? Is it going to make their job easier? Is it going to help them hit their goals? So they fail when they don't have this information, and that's comes from the leader. The leader has to express those things.
Okay, it's interesting. And do you think if leaders understand leadership and they practice leadership, what holds them back? Why they see that they are not sure how to behave? Because a lot of leaders, they know what to do.
Correct.
But they are not sure how to behave.
Well, it's interesting because sometimes, not the leader's fault, sometimes they just can't. And let me explain what I mean by that.
Sure.
Sometimes companies bury their leaders with countless meetings and communications and a plethora of requirements that it simply don't have time. I'll give you a good example. There were certain times of the year where I would have 10 to 11 meetings a day, 300 emails, and at least a half a dozen phone calls I need to make. Wow. Now tell me when I had a single minute to practice any kind of leadership with my people. And that's what I mean by that. A lot of times they're just buried and they can't. And the other reason they don't is because companies evaluate, they reward, they promote based on accomplishments that are measurable. So reduce your cost by X, increase your profits by X. Bonuses are set by measurable criteria. And leadership's hard to put a number on, but that which is recognized and rewarded is the thing that gets all the attention. And so that's why they're not being leaders. They're being rewarded not to be almost, they're being rewarded for hitting metrics that are measured. And it's very difficult. And most companies don't put anything, into a bonus or rewards or recognition for leadership. It's only what results did you get? And so you're going to focus on that. And I think that takes them out. Leadership takes time and effort, and it's a skill. Sometimes they just don't have time. Sometimes they're just too lazy to put the effort in. And then finally, simply, some of them lack the skill to lead. And as I referred to before, sometimes companies, they promote from within. So they pick their best employee who's doing a good job. Well, that employee might know how to do the job, but that doesn't make him a leader, you know. And so sometimes that person just lacks the skill to be a leader. So they may understand, leadership to a degree, but they don't practice it. And sometimes they don't practice it because it's not rewarded.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. This is also what I realized. And a lot of leaders, what I see from different organizations, they exactly what you just mentioned, they don't know how to measure leadership.
Correct.
How leadership can be measured. But they don't understand that leadership has effect of multiplication.
Right.
And very often leaders, they just focusing on processes. They're focusing on people's skills and how to place everybody in the right spot to make that person productive. But they don't think how to make that person effective. But
Correct.
effectiveness doesn't go from management. It comes from leading people.
Correct.
And when leaders, they add value to people, when they grow them, people want to do more and people
Correct.
want to become more.
Correct.
And this is how leaders don't see that effect of multiplication. And there is a study that even John C. Maxwell did in his book, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. He just clearly illustrated how leadership can be multiplied. But also, let's go back a little bit to the question, why leaders fail to change?
Okay. Yeah. Sometimes it's because they just don't buy into the change. They don't believe it, or they don't like it. They don't want to expand the energy and the time, and they're not invested in it. And then sometimes, like I said, they fail to get their teams to buy into the change, because either they weren't explained or they don't explain to the teams the hows and the whys and the whats. People need to understand if why is the change necessary? What is it going to accomplish? How's it going to affect me? And what benefit is it of me? And if I understand all these things, well, then I'm much more willing to change. And sometimes leaders fail at change because they don't get the buy-in from the people. And what I mean by that is, if you want to change and you have something that you want to change, get them involved in the way it should be changed. People, if you let them come up with the ideas, you guide them, but you help them come up with the ideas on how you're going to change to either meet a goal or to correct something that's wrong. If they come up with the change, they're going to buy into it. If you come and just tell them, well, we're going to change, here's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
They could resent it and they're going to push back. But hey, if it was my idea, I'm going to do it. Yeah. So if they will get their teams involved in the change process, I think that would help them. That would keep them from failing at change.
Yeah. It just reminded me the old saying that people will not buy into leader's vision until they buy into their leader.
Correct. That's a great way of putting it. Yeah. Absolutely. They've got to have respect. That and I always said, as a leader, you don't necessarily need to be popular, but you have to be respected, and there's a difference.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. I hope leaders who listen to us and they will reflect a little bit on it, and they will understand that they need to do things differently together with their people. And right. What I usually say to different leaders, they just should walk slowly through the crowd and ask questions to their people. Right. And observe them, what they're good at, and then grow them, value them and grow them. Right. This is the very simple way how leaders can make those people effective. And also collaboration with other executives, just get together, just bring out the best in each other And this is how people grow together, because people always grow better when they're growing together.
Right, right.
The history proven fact. And the second question that I'd like to ask you, Charlie, how do businesses get leaders to be agents of change?
Well, they have to make it a focus. Okay. Um, the minute you get things running the way you want them to run, you should already be thinking about what's coming next. You got to be on that cutting edge. You want to be the disruptor all the time. Look at Elon Musk. He's not waiting for anybody to do SpaceX and to do electric cars and to do all the things he's doing. He's cutting edge. He's always out there on the front, that's what you need to be. I mean, every company needs to be thinking about what's next. So you get your leaders to buy into that, and you encourage leaders to continue to learn. As you know, Covey says, "Sharpen the saw." I love that phrase. You help them spot trends. The company should be really, cultivating that, including them in the change process. That's huge. Brainstorming sessions with everybody, with teammates, even with your bosses, and nothing's off the table. Nothing's too crazy. Consider it, and don't spend all the energy of going, this is why this won't work. These ideas won't work. Stop right there. No, take that same energy and say, how do we make this work? Okay, we know the obstacles. How do we come over those obstacles? We don't need to spend all day discussing why they won't work. Use that energy figuring out how they will. So you get everybody together. But the big thing is the companies need to recognize those people that are putting in the effort and reward those that are making changes that have an impact. And if that's recognized, people are going to strive for that. I always say there's so many leadership books out there on, Gen Z, Gen Y, whatever, and they're focusing on the differences. Let's make it easier. They're wrong. They're going about it all wrong. Instead of that, focus on the thing that everybody has in common. And a good employee wants to be recognized. They want to contribute. They want to be rewarded. They want to make an impact. And if the company recognizes those who are putting in the effort and reward those that are, helping make those changes, then those leaders will do that. They'll want to do that. And it just benefits everybody. It benefits the employees because they feel valued. The leaders feel valued. The company is benefiting from all of that.
Yeah, that's true. I've seen this situation that business leaders, they just think that they have to have only momentum makers, people who just make momentum. But what I realized based on my study and my research and observation, that those companies who have momentum makers only, they are limited because they don't have new ideas and they don't sharpen those ideas, because all companies who have momentum makers and momentum breakers, they should have both.
Right.
Because they will have a healthy conversation.
Absolutely.
And when leaders, they just value this both, and momentum makers and momentum breakers, they will have then the best decision from these two groups of people.
Right.
And this is a proven fact, because when we don't take into consideration another point of view and we just think that we are the smartest in this room, it doesn't work like that.
Correct. Right. I was always shocked by managers who were my way or the highway.
Yeah.
Because what you're saying then is I have all the answers and there's nothing that you can contribute, and I don't value anything that you have to contribute to this.
Yeah.
And that's just a destroyer of morale and team, and you really limit what you could do by taking away all the contributions of everybody else in the room and everybody else in the company.
Yeah, that's true. And then people just feel like stagnant on plateau.
Right.
And they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And they're looking for a decision from the leader, but leader doesn't know how to behave.
Right.
So this is what happened when they just focus on, as you said, my way or a highway, because people just blocked. They just don't want to become a voice number one. They
Correct.
just want to keep silent.
Right.
And
That's
then
exactly what
leaders,
it does. It just shuts everybody down.
yes,
They're not going to contribute. They're going to do the least amount possible.
yeah,
To do that. If you get I always say, get people to want to do the job. If you can do that, your job's easier because they're going to not only do what you ask them to do, they're going to be looking to do more than what you ask them to do.
yeah,
And so your job gets a whole lot easier as soon as you get them to want to do the
yeah,
job.
right, correct. Yeah, it's really interesting conversation. Thank you. Thank you for your feedback. Also, another question, what I wanted to ask you, Charlie. How can you succeed with leader who is difficult to work with?
Okay. Yeah. And I can only speak from my experience because I've had some really tough bosses over the years. And I've had some really bad bosses over the years. And quite honestly, I valued both the bad bosses for the reason that they taught me so much of what not to do. I learned so much from them. So take that into consideration. What's he doing? Okay, that's terrible. I'm never going to do that. Don't repeat those mistakes, kind of thing. But the big thing is if you got a boss that's difficult to work with, first, manage his expectations or her expectations. What are they wanting? And then find out what they want, be clear about it. And you may have to have a conversation with them to clarify exactly what it is they want so that you understand what's going to make them happy, what's going to make it easier to work with them. And then whatever it is, do it. But don't just do it better than they ask. If they ask for one, you give them two. If they ask for X, you give them X plus Y. You always go above and beyond. And a lot of people go, well, I'm not going to work any harder than this person over here. We're making the same amount of money. Why should I do more money? You always do more than the next person. You make yourself so invaluable to that leader that he can't afford to lose you. And I promise you, if you do that, he's going to look at you in a different way and treat you in a different way because he doesn't want to lose you. So you just make yourself invaluable and you do whatever it is that they're asking to be done, and you try to exceed that. And that was always my goal. And even as a leader, if my company set a goal on, okay, this is our per cap. No, not in my region. In my region, the per cap is going to be 5 cents higher than that. I always set goals above expectations. And if you can do that and you strive to do that, even if you don't hit your own goals a little bit, you're going to hit their goals. And, that's how you get along with somebody who's difficult. But, there's times that if they're that bad of a leader, that it's making you miserable or stressing you all the time, the answer is really simple, is you don't. People leave businesses not because of the business. People leave because of managers and leaders. That's the reason they leave a company. And sometimes that's the answer because people, leaders are put into those positions where it's detrimental to you, to your mental health, to your stress and everything, because they may be abusive in the way they go about their leadership. And so sometimes the answer is you just don't. You go get another job somewhere else and you just don't do that.
Yeah.
So it comes down to that. And then some things like, for instance, if okay, my leader is not giving me support, well, then find support some other way, from some other source. You try to get that support. Or my boss doesn't recognize me. Okay, recognize yourself. Understand that what you're achieving, and then recognize those around you. You be the foster of that yourself, of that recognition. And so you take care of yourself on those kind of needs, if need be, if that's your leader, and maybe you're stuck in that job and you have to do that job. But yeah, so if you can just exceed what they're asking, become invaluable, they can't, and they can't lose you. They'll treat you differently, and that's my best way of doing it. That's what's worked for me in my life.
I think that leaders, they need to understand how to connect with people. because a lot of leaders, because all of us, we are humans. First of all, we are humans. And in my opinion, we can find approach to every single person, to every single individual. We're not animals.
Right.
We have humans. So
Right.
I think everybody, and I believe everybody can grow his or her leadership ability to become a little better leader. And when people start growing, they start realizing that they are able to grow and develop. At the same time, when they see that they can grow other people as leaders, they just embrace that, I'll say, improvisation and lead those people for
Right.
their personal advantage.
Right.
For
I always had a saying at Cinemark, and that was that leaders get leaders. Leaders should be producing leaders. That's your job.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And so that was a big one, and that was one that was very valued. When it came time to promote somebody to a regional VP spot, the things that we would look at is, who have you produced? Who are the managers that took theaters, in other places? How many people did you produce? And that was very valued, because leaders should be producing leaders.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And what I want to share with you, because I didn't tell you yet, that based on comments, what I see on LinkedIn, people love you so much, sir.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, I've got a pretty good following. I still, I've been retired 5 years, and I still get weekly phone calls from managers and assistant managers and home office people. I went to CinemaCon, and I ran into, I think, 10 or 11 people from Cinemark. I got hugs from all of them. It was nice.
Yes.
So yeah, absolutely. I think that was the one thing. One of the big reasons why was simply because I cared for the people, and I always said, my blessing is that I am obligated to make people more successful than they thought they could be. That's my goal. And if you can produce those leaders and make those people more successful, all boats rise with the tide, and the company's better for it. And somebody said this term, and so I'm not going to take credit, but I'm going to repeat it because I love it, and I made it my mantra. And that is, you can't get your customer experience right until you get your employee experience right.
Yes.
So my focus was always about, my management team, my leaders, and my employees, and getting that experience right. And if they know that you care about them and you want the best for them, you can ask difficult things of them,
Yeah.
and they'll buy into it because they know you have their best interest in mind.
Yeah.
And they're going to walk on water for you. And I always said, I got to where I was not because of me, but because I got other people to get me there, and I built up other people. I always had the best people that I surrounded myself, and I helped produce them into great leaders.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Carol, I'd like to ask you, what would you advise to different business owners and business leaders, what they should focus on in terms of leadership, and if they struggle with change that they have at the moment in their organizations, what would you advise to do?
Well, I mean, it's got to start from the top down. It's got to be absolutely, from the top down, and they have to build that culture, and it's got to be positive, and they need to live that, and everything that they say and do, they need to live that and set that example. People don't change because sometimes, they're just treading water to get by, and change takes effort. And that's like handing them a bucket of bricks, and so it can be difficult. But the leaders need to foster that. The business owners, first off, be what you want to see, but then start at the very bottom. Talk to those employees. Get to know those employees. Let those employees know that you value them, and you better value them because your business doesn't exist without them. And so they need to understand that. Look at yourself, humble yourself, You shouldn't be the golden palace that they all answer to. You should answer to them. They're the ones making it happen. They're the ones earning you the money. You answer to them. You be a conduit to help them succeed. Help your leaders succeed. Train your leaders so they have the same philosophy. They need to talk to the employees. They need to let the employees have a voice, to be part of it, to be part of the change, to instigate change. Listen to your employees. They come up with some great things, and so that would be my suggestion to business owners, start from the bottom up, first set the example, but then start with your employees and get that experience right. Let them have some say into how things happen, and they'll buy into the change, reward that change, and they're going to want to do that. But it's got to start from the very top down. So business owners, you need to set that example. They need to see in you something positive. They need to see that you care about them and that you have their best interest in mind. If you can convince them of that, and you better believe that from the bottom of your heart. And if you do that, they're going to work for you, and they're going to walk on water for you. And your business is going to succeed. But you got to humble yourself, and you got to be a servant, to them. And so if you can do that, then you're going to be very successful in whatever you do, because your employees are going to make it so.
Yeah. Thank you very much for this great advice. And while I was listening to you, it was like a nice story, like a dream, like a legend.
Thank you so much.
To hear from you, from such an experienced person. And I see how you really value other people. You're a person of value, and you value others.
Thank you so much. Yeah, very much so. I always I would tell my leaders, what do you want your legacy to be? Do you want your legacy to be that guy that goes around, grumpy and giving up, just doing nothing but telling them what to do? Or do you want to help those people succeed in so much that down the road they go, I owe a great deal to that person because they helped me succeed. They helped build that foundation that made me a strong leader. That's your legacy. And that's my biggest joy in my life. My biggest accomplishments were other people, helping them succeed. That was my biggest accomplishment, And so, so when those managers call me and tell me that I made a huge impact on their lives, that's gold. It doesn't get any better. There's nothing else I can think of that makes me more happier than that, other than my family.
Yes.
But as far as my accomplishment goes, I can't tell you what my paycheck was in 1994. I don't know. I don't know, the cars that I drove or whatever. I do remember those people, and when they call and they send messages, they're on Facebook or they're on LinkedIn, or the phone calls that I get quite a bit. It's an awesome feeling, and that I absolutely help somebody else. There's nothing better than that.
Yeah, I'd like to tell you, sir, thank you for your service.
Thank you so much. Yeah, no, I was following you, and you're amazing at what you do. You really are. You're an inspiration yourself.
Thank you for being here with us. And you just mentioned that you do consulting.
I do. How
people can find you to have your services?
Well, that's a good thing, because I really don't advertise. cstreet393@yahoo.com is my email. Anybody that would need my help with a small business,
okay.
I'm available. I do mostly movie theaters, but skills translate.
Absolutely.
And when it comes to leadership, that goes across any company, any business out there.
Absolutely.
If I could ever help anybody, absolutely, because that's my joy.
Yes.
I miss mentoring people and helping them become strong leaders.
Yeah,
that's the only thing I miss. I don't miss all the meetings. I don't miss all the phone calls and all the emails. I miss the people.
Okay.
So if I could ever help anybody, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I see. Okay, thank you very much. I hope our listeners, they just will write down your contact information, and they will contact you.
I appreciate you so much. I really do.
So I'd like to address to all listeners, just subscribe on this channel and put likes, just leave your comments. We'll be glad to answer any questions that you will have, and Charly and myself, so we can continue our conversation. Thank you.